Welcome, dear viewers, to a new episode of Dialogue Horizon. In this episode, we will discuss different subjects and events which occurred last week since our last meeting. Now I'm very happy to host in this episode two of our distinguished guests of different specialities. Actually, first we have our friend Dr. Abdul Halim Tayman. He is the Assistant President of National Ummah Party. Ummah Party, that's enough. Also, we have our big journalist and activist, Ustad Makki al-Maghrabi. Makki al-Maghrabi is a columnist in different newspapers, English newspapers, and also he's a press figure in the media. Thank you, both of you, for joining me in this important episode of Dialogue Horizon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let us first start by Dr. Abdul Halim Tayman. Dr. Abdul Halim Tayman, last week, this is actually for both of you, that's the same, they will answer the same question. Last week, a very important conference convened in Doha, in Qatar, about the least developed countries in the world, as categorized by it was done under the auspices of the United Nations, and there are some alarming information and facts about this matter, because there are about 64 countries considered in the list of the least developed countries in the world. They constitute almost 1/3 of a billion, about 350 million in 64 countries around the globe. They are in their worst conditions. They are considered the least developed countries. Sadly enough, in the Arab region, the United Nations put 4 or 5 countries as in this list, which are Sudan, number 1, Mauritania, Somalia, and Yemen, which is very sad. Only 4 countries. We are among 4 countries considered as the least developed countries, although we have a lot of resources. Okay. Actually, President Al-Burhan witnessed, and he came and he addressed the conference. He's talking about the resources of Sudan and the hurdles or the impediments which put Sudan actually in this small group of countries considered as the least developed countries. Although we have the resources, we have the water, we have everything, which is now becoming a problem in the globe. Yet Sudan is considered in one of the poorest countries in the world, which is very, very bad, which does not reflect exactly what the potentials of Sudan. But unfortunately, since independence, our leaders, political leaders, the civilians in the different parties, they failed to pick up the fruits, especially the low-hanging fruits. Some fruits are low-hanging, what could have been easily picked. So, also the United Nations, the report, they say that 4 countries or 5 countries will leave this 64, those least developed, which is good. That is Angola, Bangladesh, and Bhutan, and Laos. 4 countries will leave. So this means that it is quite possible that we can get out of this sad list of the least developed countries. So my question is, to what can you anticipate when Sudan will get out of this tunnel of least developed countries? Is it very soon? And what are the prerequisites which need Sudan to get out, to get rid of this sad tunnel?
Thank you for having me. And in your question, you associated the problem of underdevelopment in Sudan to political parties, and that our leaders are not up to the challenges and the aspirations of the nation since independence, which I must tell you that they are not the political leaders, because we have 67 years since we got our independence. Out of this 67 years, almost 60 years was ruled by military.
But why the military? Why did the military intervene? Because of the performance. Anyhow, sorry to
No,
interrupt.
I'm just talking.
Okay.
There is, and also you talked about 3 countries which are proposed to get out of this list.
Yes, yes.
They are African countries, but there is a clear association between political stability, democracy, and fair and rule of institutions, rule of law, and development, economic development. Economic development cannot happen in the presence of military coup, and cannot happen under dictatorship. And you can just go and see and make a comparison between the countries that is still in the bottom of the list of the countries of least developed countries in Africa, and those countries who succeeded to make clear steps towards economic stability, like, for example, Ghana, Kenya, Zambia, and now Tanzania, Morocco. You have some countries, it's clear that
They are not in the list. They are not in the list. Yes, you are right.
the factor of political stability and democracy is major for any country which is seeking development and economic stability and growth. But returning to the case of Sudan, we suffered a lot because of the continuous military coups. Sudan, after the glorious December revolution and after the formation of the first civilian government under the leadership of Dr. Hamdok, we made a clear strategy, especially the economic reform strategy, which has clear objectives, so that want to reduce poverty, that want to direct budgets towards education and health and pure water for citizens, and cooperation with international community. We made good progress in this regard, and that Sudan succeeded in just 6 months to be accepted in the SMP program in the HIPEC, and this means that Sudan, if this coup did not happen, Sudan, after these reforms and after Paris conference, Sudan was to benefit from huge debt reduction or relief, and that means the country will direct the budgets that previously used to pay for the debts. The country can use these budgets to support the education, health, and also fight poverty. And at the same time, Sudan was also proposed to benefit from some help, around $4 billion. We are expecting a huge support from international organizations, financial organizations, to the civilian government. Also, there's a lot of pledges from different countries to support Sudan. The president of the World Bank came here and addressed the annual meeting from Sudan, and that international investors will come. So if we are to think about economic development, first of all, we should reverse this coup, and we should return to the democratic path, and we should, as nation, believe that under dictatorship and military rule, we will never stand on our feet. And this is something that we've been trying 60 years, Look at our neighbors, Kenya, for example. They, under the democratic rule, in few years, their macroeconomic fundamentals are developing, the education level and quality improve, health care, and all the economic variables are excellent. So we need to return to the democratic path. We need to form civilian government and to retain all these benefits that we pledges that we received after our considerable and good efforts during the Hamdok regime. So we need to retain.
You need to return to democratic.
Yes.
This answered my question,
Yeah,
because
yes.
you need to return to sustained democratic
This
system
is the only
of
way
governance.
to
So that we can, without this we cannot get out of this
list. Yeah.
list. Okay. Okay, then we go to our friend Ustad Makki al-Maghrabi. The same question, but I want to add something mentioned in by Dr. Halim Tayman. He mentioned 4 or 5 countries, of which Kenya, and you know Kenya, you have been to Kenya so many times. He mentioned Kenya, and the countries which meet Kenya, Tanzania, they are adopting democratic presidential system. One person, but elected democratic, not like our parliamentary system. Maybe one of the reasons is that the parliamentary system, which we adopted and inherited from the British colonization, it was not, and it is not suitable in our country. That is why resulted in 3 military coups which ruled the country about 52 years out of 67 years. Can you elaborate on this with my remark that the countries mentioned by Dr. Halim Tayman are adopting different system of governance, democratic, not military or not totalitarian. Can you tell us about this? How can we get out of this list?
Yes, we'll come to that specifically and the experience of Kenya. But let me start with the conference, with the event itself. The conference, which is the United Nations Conference on least developed countries, that something happened every 10 years. It happens once a decade. The first one was in Paris in 1980, and then the second in Paris also in 1990s, and then the third in Brussels in 21, something like that. And then the fourth was in 2010 in Istanbul, and it was very big and powerful. And now we have in Qatar, Doha, the 5th one. So I think Sudan missed the opportunity, because that's something happening every 10 years, once a decade. So it is not just the attendance of the head of the Sovereignty Council. There should be a side event of Sudan to introduce Sudan to the world. There should be a campaign before the event, that what are the potentials of Sudan, because if you Google Sudan and put Google image Sudan, you will not see the potentials. You will see the war and the victims, and you see the martyrs of demonstration on the ground. Okay, this is what you see in Sudan. So to change this image of Sudan, that was an opportunity. It should not be handled just as a diplomatic representation and presidential representation and the foreign minister. So that, and also it happening in a country that is in a good relation with Sudan, Qatar. Also, I want to mention here the role of Qatar really now is getting bigger, and they are working in a wise and smart steps. Look at the organization of the World Cup. That was wonderful. Look now to the 5th conference of the least developed countries. So Doha and Qatar, under the leadership of His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad, now I think is getting a big role in the international politics. Regarding Sudan, no doubt the potential of Sudan It's something standard, actually. You don't measure the potential of Sudan, but Sudan is the standard and the measures for other countries. And I'm pretty sure that it is easy for Sudan to graduate from the least developed countries like Bangladesh and others. Why? Not just the potentials of Sudan. There is a phenomenon in Sudan making Sudan different from all countries. It is the recoverability. What is the recoverability? Look at the policies that made the exchange rate stable. A country like Sudan, you make the policies and the positive response will happen. You can change the market if you do good policies, well studied, strategic plans. The market will respond and the economy will respond positively. Some countries, a response that happened in Sudan in 2 weeks, sometimes you need 2 years in other countries. Not just because Sudanese people are kind and good and the social fabric, no. Other criteria playing role in this issue. Just like if you have a country which is overpopulated, like Ethiopia or Egypt, you need to exert more efforts to manage the economy. But in Sudan, because it is underpopulated country with vast areas and plenty of production, so the headache of the government is not like the others, especially in the economy. Maybe in security issues and political issues, but Sudan, the recoverability of Sudan, or the possibility for Sudan to recover in its economy, is very high. Very high. One of the things that I like it in December Revolution is not just the awareness of liberty and freedoms, no. I think because the change that happened in Sudan decided the economic identity of Sudan. And there was failed trials to bring Sudan back to socialism. There was a challenge and resistance to Hamidok restructuring plan, and even the plan now, the current government, what they are doing the same plans. And there was a resistance against the restructuring plan, against lifting the subsidies. Some people, they want to bring Sudan back to socialism and communism even. All that failed. So the change now, because the change, if change like that happened within a dictatorship regime, full dictatorship regime, just like Nimeri, with one party system and all that, you can say that change is not real because it happened under military rule. But this change now happened after a revolution and within a prime minister chosen by political parties that they participated in the revolution. And there was a resistance, and all things now settled in the direction of a market economy. Comes back to the example of Kenya that mentioned by Dr. Abdul Halim. Yes, it's true. Kenya started with a free economy system and with democracy. There was no military coup, and there is no military coup. There is no armed movement in Kenya
since independence.
Yes, and for me, as a press writer focusing on economic analysis more than social and political analysis, I am pretty sure that the market economy has played a major role to adjust the political things in Kenya. Because if you need socialism and if you need to subsidize goods for people, you need a big government. But with market economy, always the government is small. And it will be limited to the role of coordinating the political arena and coordinating the economy. So for me, I think Sudan, if the ongoing dialogue achieved its goal, and if the settlement happened, and if we have a civilian government formed, I think Sudan will get back to the right track very soon, and we can graduate from the least developed countries. I think if there is a serious government, that will happen in 2 years.
2 years. That's very
Not more.
Very, very good. That's very good. That's very clear. Okay, that's very clear. Now I think there is at least there is a hope that Sudan can get out of this list developed countries very soon, provided that we do our homework. That is exactly what I'm saying. We have to do enough so that we can. Okay, let us go to the current problem, the dilemma of nominating or starting nominating the prime minister and the government. Time is running short because the global or the international committee is setting a deadline, like maybe end of this month, and it seems that from what is going on, it will take time, because some people, they believe that the workshops adopted by the ratification of the framework agreement, they believe that the work of the workshops, the decision to go for workshop is not wise, because it is time consuming, because it is not the duty of those who are now controlling the transitional period, because the workshop activities or the workshop matters are matter to be discussed in parliaments. They have to be passed in parliaments, not in to whom. Let us say after they finish the 5 words, okay, the deliberation finished, the recommendation. To whom are they going to send these deliberations? And who is going to give it the power to be implemented? No parliament, no legislative system. So they believe, some people, they believe the workshop as a waste of time. So some people, they believe that they should go directly to the issue of nominating the prime minister and the cabinet of ministers from technocrats. Some people, technocrats. I believe myself technocrats. Some parties, they believe otherwise. They have to. Anyhow, I want to have your comment on the workshops of the framework on the necessity of making any transitional government. In very short analysis, Dr. Halim.
The political process, of course, since it began, it also was associated with a lot of differences and disputes, and thus we know the civilian component was trying to reverse the coup and tries to get the country back to the transitional track to democratic transformation. But as you know, this is something not easy, because we have many forces working against the will and aspirations of our people. But at the same time, we believe in our people, and we believe that all Sudanese components, we have many to unite us, and we must look at what unites us, and we must go and solve our differences, because as you know, this is a very dangerous time of our history, and we have seen how things are deteriorating every day, economically and socially. And but at last, the workshops was part of the steps that were designed as a political process to prepare for the final agreement between the different partners. But as you said, the political process, the daily developments of the political process has showed that this political process was slow in process. And there is a need to expedite this process, and I think there is nothing that prevents changing the decisions if it is something that was seen as reactions of the people. If our people, they want the rest of the workshops to be held after the final agreements, there is nothing we can do that. We can do that because this is an elastic process. We are here to translate the wills and the reactions of our people, and we will evaluate if at one hand, for example, the deterioration that is going in economy and daily life in one hand, and the other thing that the political process and the path of the political process, if we think that we can forego some of these steps in order to to provide us a quick solution to this deterioration, there is nothing that can prevent that. Yes.
I said because it seems that the workshops are impeding the process of the formation of the transitional government, which is a prerequisite for the international community
it's not only
start. So this is one thing.
Not only the workshops, but the process as a whole. There are a lot of variables that.
Yeah, but widened by the workshops. The time when time goes, things are the gap is widening, not narrowing.
And the time is also is not only the workshops that is impeding and costing time for the political process. We can see also the gap that exists between the different components of the transitional period, and we have seen the differences, the disputes, and a lot of even the differences between the civilian components from one side, the difference between the military components for the other side, and the differences between the civilian and the military components. So there are a lot of.
They have to sit together.
Yes,
Okay. Let us outside. Now you follow this. Was about nomination. What? Because you are pragmatic. Because you are activist and journalist. So what is, as from what you are seeing?
Yes, nomination.
Way out.
The prime minister is something very important to restart Sudan's foreign relations, and it should be prior than anything else. But from day one, if you remember, I supported the framework agreement. No one can see Sudanese people, political parties come together and say, no, that is something bad. It is something good by 100%. But from day one also, I'm calling to broadening the base of the framework agreement and to complete it, because the definition of the framework agreement is an incomplete agreement. This is by definition. It gives you some points complete and it leaves some points incomplete, and that needs the other political parties to come. Even things started to go wrong with the framework agreement, but still I think the framework agreement should stand and should be broadened and should be should lead this stage up to choosing the prime minister. It is no secret that there is public opinion now criticizing the framework agreement. It is not the public opinion. The leaders of Sudan themselves, Hemeti said that there is another agreement that locked in the drawer, and no one knows, no one after or behind the people that
nobody knows.
Yes, nobody knows. From people that the only people that they signed. This is not said by leaks or some people against the framework agreement. It is said by someone who is supported the framework agreement. And also he said that we are manipulated by embassies or directed by embassies. So I don't take these things to say that the framework agreement is something should stop or something bad. I take these things to give us indicator that it is incomplete and it is not perfect, but it should stand and should be enriched by ideas from all political parties. From this angle, I think others should join the framework agreement, should not be hesitant, and should not try to find another path or another agreement. Some try to call we need to merge the declaration or the statement of Juba, not Juba, Cairo, with the framework agreement. No, I think why do we reinvent the wheel? We have an agreement,
A framework.
and a framework, and the people themselves that they said it is a framework and it is incomplete, and we need others to complete. At least some of them. I'm pretty sure that not all the signatories of the framework agreement, they want to exclude others, but some they are talking about that, and some they want really to exclude others. For me, I think the Juba signatories should join. Other people that representing other political parties, some people that they already have agreements with the former regime regarding Darfur, just like Sisi and others, and those agreements are adopted by the international community. Someone like a Sisi, he might say to you, I negotiate the former regime after a pressure from the international community. Okay? And the pressure reached a level of threatening of sanctions for people against the peace in Darfur. So they involved in the peace negotiation under the support or the pressure of the international community, and they signed an agreement, and the agreement was blessed by the international community, so that the international community cannot come here now and say, no, sorry, you cannot join. If said that it would be so hypocrite. Okay, so some other political parties, they have their political existence and skills, and they were not part of Bashir's regime even at that time. Just like Mubarak al-Fadil, he quit Bashir's regime and he stood outside the regime.
He was rejected, yes.
And also rejected by some parties or by some people. We cannot generalize the issue. Maybe it's a kind of dispute. And this is not the end of story. The negotiation should continue. But still, I think the international community should treat Sudan in a different way. If there is a seriousness from the political parties that they signed the framework agreement, and now they are negotiating the others, why not you lift the situation that's similar to sanction from Sudan? Just lift it, because definitely the process is in the direction of the framework agreement, in the direction of a political settlement.
No logic yet. You are
Yes.
right. So they have to. You are calling as if you are calling
Yes.
for the.
Why you deprive Sudanese people and saying I will not recognize this change? If you are part of the process, you should join the Sudanese people in the process, and I think all things will be. Now, which is more difficult than the politics is the economy. The government of Hamadok, they put very hard economic policies and they implement it. And the government that came now, they are implementing the same policies. And it is very hard, very tough. So that for me, Sudanese, they made things that more difficult than the political settlement, and they will do the political settlement.
They will do that.
Yes.
So in essence, you are talking about something like double standards from those who deprive or whom to decide whom to sign and whom not to sign. As you said, that Yani Sisi was in the former regime. He was the assistant, he was the governor of the...
And Juba Congress, not Juba,
why
Bija Congress.
Why Mubarak al-Fadil? Yes,
Yes.
he was assistant to the president. But the same thing,
I don't think the only
they should not
condition
deprive
that
him. They should not deprive
the
him.
National Congress Party, which is the party of the Inqaz regime, that already mentioned in the constitutional document. Okay, but other parties that joined the peace process. Look at the Bija Congress. Okay, they have an agreement with Asmara agreement with the former regime. Look at Maulana Muhammad Usman al-Mirghani. He has Cairo agreement with the former regime, and they came and they participated. So that was the time of agreements. Even Ummah Party itself, they have Djibouti agreement.
Yes.
And they came here, but after that, the decision of the grassroots and the base of the Ummah Party was the majority against the participation. Mubarak al-Fadil take another path. He defended that is why they are there here. They came through an agreement. Anyway, it is internal dispute within Ummah Party. But I want to say that there was a time of openness, just like the national reconciliation happened in the time of Nimeri and others, and Ummah Party joined and then withdrew. So in that time, political parties that they joined the former regime, you cannot brand them as a former regime. If you do that, the SPLM is a former regime, because they participated in the government till the independence of South Sudan, because they don't come to the power with the ruling party. They come to the power in agreement with the ruling party, including democracy and freedoms and others, and some of them they withdraw. Even some split of the NCP.
NCP, yes.
Yes, some people they split of the NCP. Okay, look here at the contradiction. How do you allow the Congress party, Mu'tamar al-Sha'bi, and they were with the regime till the last moment, the last minute? They were part of the regime, and they participated even in the creation of the regime itself. How you put them with the people that they signed the agreement, and you say, no, we don't want that person. There is no logic here. I think the framework agreement is something wonderful and should be open.
Okay, that's very clear. For you, Dr. Harim, we have a lot of small questions about this framework. What Makil Maghrabi was very clear and very specific in his words, and in most of it I agree with him. But let us now talk about this framework, which is a framework. As he mentioned, the definition of framework, it is something incomplete. It had to be completed. Okay, who is actually impeding the process of reaching the final agreement? This is some people, they say, who gave some very small group the right to choose who is to sign the framework agreement. This is a question which, for example, do you think that the armed struggle movement, are they going to join hands and agree on reintegration while the rapid support force is not integrated? It's a question like this. But start by the first question. Who gave the right to some people to decide on who is to sign the framework agreement? They put only conditions. Everybody now agreed on, except the National Congress Party. Except this is the only exception which is endorsed by many agree, including the constitutional document. Only the NCP, National Congress Party. Who gives the others the right to to accept or not to accept. So many people are ready and they showed their interest to sign the agreement. Who is impeding this? Who is minding the stores?
The framework agreement came to effect as an agreement between the civilian and other social and other movement components and the military. And as you know, 40 of these groups signed this agreement. So it is a joint work, and it is a joint responsibility of the different factions. But in general terms, you mentioned some very important issues. First of all, we are a country that has deep differences in ethnicities, and we have also imbalances and gaps of developments between different regions. We inherited from the colonizer a country that is divided ethnically and regionally, and some of these issues since independence we didn't work on them strategically, and that can explain our continuous differences and our inability to reach a consensus between our components, and still this step or this station also is another challenge that we are facing. So in general meanings, people should sacrifice the personal interests at this time. I myself, I believe that anything that can bring people together, that is something we should work on, and we should welcome that. And I don't believe in monopoly, and if there is any component or a party or any other thing who has any idea of monopoly, that something is not acceptable, and we don't believe in that. But as a political process should go through documents, and should also be defined, and there should be criteria and all these things. And the people talked about a contradiction in applying the criteria to different groups and people. This is also something should be revised, because we should set the criteria, and then we should agree, and not only some or partial groups should put the criteria. No, this is something that should be done by the participation of all, and all those who participated in removing the old regime. We are very keen to include peace powers, because we are a country that suffered from armed conflicts, and most of our expenditure since independence went to war. And this is a time that we can change this strategy, and we should reverse also our strategy so that it concentrates on directing these resources to the critical and main areas for development, for education. That is why I think the peace powers should be included, and there are also some complications in the East. We should look at these issues, and we should incorporate also these regional conflicts and differences into our national equation. So a lot of work is needed, and also I think that after this political development, after signing the framework agreement, we have seen also some very unfavorable conditions that were there in the political arena. We have seen also some development concerning military differences or differences between the military components. So we need to readjust the equation also again, because these things we must learn from these things. We have many blocks. We have the democratic bloc. We have also a national accord, and we have the central council, and all these groups should come together. They should.
They have to come together.
They have to sit and come
Otherwise,
together. No,
we'll be in deep
no.
trouble.
This is a transitional period.
So they have to accept.
yeah, we should concentrate on certain and specific goals. Not we should not open our ambitions to many goals. Our goal should be how to reach, how to get back into the transitional path, and how we can benefit from our efforts, our mutual efforts, in order to reach the democratic transformation. But this doesn't mean that we will open the door for those who are trying to come with some titles, and because we know that the
No, it
elements...
has to be screwed.
No, there are some elements of the old regime. They are using some deceptive titles, and they want to retain and be part of this process. Unless we are only those who are somewhat, we think of them as representing the elements of the old regime and the National Congress. The rest of these people, there is nothing that can prevent us to sit together and discuss our national issues, because all of us, we are partners in one country.
This is very clear. Okay, my last question is to maybe to Ustad Makki al-Maghribi. Last week you were participating in the 36th summit, African summit in Addis Ababa, and which Sudan as a member did not appear because membership was suspended because of the coup. Some people, they believe that Sudan, why not treated like Chad, but the case is different. Anyhow, tell us about, in short, about 3 minutes, about your feeling about the absence of Sudan from the summit and the possibilities of rejoining the African Union very soon. Just tell us about the African Union summit last week.
Yes, I was there, and I was alone. I think 2 journalists from Sudan representing media channels, but I am the only person who can speak to media from Sudan. There are some Sudanese, wonderful Sudanese, they work with the African Union as a staff. They cannot speak about Sudan. But I was there as a press writer and political analyst, and the media made with me 23 interviews.
23
interviews, and the number was bigger, but that was my capacity. It was sad for me, because look here, I attended most of African summits and events from 2008. I didn't miss African events. That is my career, that is my field, that is my life. The only exception when I served the Sudanese foreign service in Washington, D.C. as a media attaché for Sudan embassy there. But throughout my career in media, that was my field, Africa. So having Sudan absent completely, that is something very sad for me. And not just Sudan. The issue of Guinea and Mali and Burkina Faso, that they are suspended. And I know the situation. African Union is an organization for development. If there is a road crossing Burkina Faso from Niger to other country, how you can plan for a road while there is a country absent? So the sanction itself was damaging the development system in the African Union. You might find another solution. The country should be present. You can talk about no vote punishment as example.
Yes.
Okay. So what you want to send a message that you are not okay with the unconstitutional things that you see. You can make this in another way, not the complete suspension of participation of Sudan. For me also, the African Union made a mistake, because the African Union, by definition, in Article 25 of the Charter of Democratic Election, stated that the African Union should exert efforts and then go to the sanction.
Yeah.
So the role of African Union is that they should send a delegation to mediate between the civilian, political parties and the military, and not just to go to the sanction.
Okay, that's very good, very clear. Ustad Makki al-Maghribi, we are anyhow at least we are happy that you represent Sudan in a way.
I represent the 40 million 40 million people.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Abdul Halim Tayman. Thank you, Ustad Makki al-Maghribi. Thank you, dear viewers, for being with us in the last hour or so in this episode. We hope to see you next week in a different issue of Dialogue Horizons. Thank you and bye.